ISIS's roots are a very complex system of terrorist alliances and Middle Eastern activities in the early 2000s and late 1990s. The earliest known part of ISIS was known to have been created by a Jordanian radical named Abu Musab al-Zarqawi in 1999 and had been named Jam'at al-Tawhid wal-Jihad. The first known modern-day ISIS activities took place in 2004 during the Iraq War when the group pledged allegiance to al-Qaeda. After the U.S. invasion took Hussein out of power, the country became extremely unstable and easily manipulated due to there being no government control. In this period of time, many groups fought over Iraq as the U.S. failed to insert a stable government. One of these groups was the shell of what would eventually grow to be ISIS. By 2004, ISIS was known as the powerful group Al-Qaeda in Iraq, which was a branch of Al-Qaeda. This group's job at first was to fight U.S. troops stationed in Iraq. The reason that ISIS fought U.S. troops that were stationed in Iraq is because the war destroyed Iraqi society, leading to a hatred of Western influence, especially the U.S. Al-Qaeda in Iraq, otherwise known as AQI, continued to fight Western opposition for years while also merging with other Sunni militant groups. The group terrorized citizens and occupiers of Iraq who consistently tried to fight off AQI. In 2006, al-Zarqawi was killed in a U.S. airstrike and was succeeded by Abu Ayyub al-Mazri, whose leadership slowly led to a decline in AQI's involvement with al-Qaeda.
Originally a part of al-Qaeda in Iraq, ISIS began its reign during the insurgency in Iraq following the American invasion. Without Saddam's regime suppressing them, they established major influence in the region. With Iraq's economy in shambles, the promise of an Islamic utopia and the steady income of working for ISIS was immensely appealing to many poor Iraqi citizens. With little to no resistance, ISIS foot soldiers began capturing Iraqi cities in hopes of establishing their caliphate, or Islamic land. On May 9, 2013, ISIS merged with al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Jabhat al-Nusra and expanded their efforts into Syria. They began clashing with the Syrian army and Syrian rebels. In August 2013, ISIS took the major Syrian city of Raqqa. Upon this, they claimed themselves a nation, known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, and named Raqqa their capital. To finance these operations, they sell oil from the oil fields that they have captured. In addition, they loot banks from the lands and are selling artifacts from the many historical sites in Iraq and Syrian lands. Killing all opposition, very little is known about what goes on within these captured lands. In order to maintain a steady number of soldiers, ISIS pays a relatively great salary to many of the poor Iraqi and Syrian soldiers. Each soldier gets paid between $400 to $1,200 a month, plus $50 for each wife and $25 for each child.
In 2004, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi joined and became a part of al-Qaeda. He started a new group, AQI, which stood for Al-Qaeda in Iraq. In 2006, Zarqawi was killed by a U.S. airstrike and replaced by Abu Ayyub al-Mazri. To gain local support, Mazri broke off with al-Qaeda and started a new group, IC, known as the Islamic State in Iraq. After the death of Mazri in 2010, IC makes Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi their next leader. On May 9, 2013, ISIS states their decision of their merge with the al-Qaeda affiliate in Syria. They became known as ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. On December 30th, 2013, ISIS dismantled a Sunni protest camp in Fallujah, which angered many people. 3 days later, al-Qaeda seized control of parts of the town. Videos showed ISIS's attacks and seizures on the main police station. The next day, the town was reportedly in control of the Sunni rebels, but still contested. The rebels burned police stations and showed off their weapons. They then waved their flag and took over all the police stations and military posts. Finally, on January 4, 2014, ISIS seized full control over Fallujah. Due to the expansion into Syria and Middle Eastern activity, al-Qaeda leader Ayman al-Zawahiri is upset with the group and their extreme methods. He officially cuts ties with ISIS on February 3, 2014. On June 4th, ISIS began their efforts to capture Mosul. The Iraqi army was ready for this attack and had already set up 30,000 soldiers in the city, facing a total of 1,500 ISIS soldiers. ISIS was at a big disadvantage, but after just 6 days of fighting, the whole city, including the Mosul International Airport and all the helicopters there, were under ISIS's control. It is estimated that 500,000 civilians were relocated due to the conflict. This was an extremely important event because it showed that not only were they extending their territory massively, but how strong their military was. This posed a threat to everyone in the Middle East, and possibly in the future, the whole world. 2 days later, on June 11th, ISIS seized Tikrit, the hometown of former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein. This made it their second biggest gain, and around 50,000 people fled the city. Now that ISIS claimed lots of power in the Middle East, their next goal is for a global caliphate.
ISIS has been responsible for many of the more recent violent attacks of terrorism. Attacks have begun to occur more frequently as a result of the 2014 incident where ISIS militants kidnapped and beheaded a tourist to protest European airstrikes in Syria. Consequently, more and more attacks have been executed by ISIS members and sympathizers alike. These attacks are not only devastating for the families and friends of those who are wounded or even killed, but it creates fear. Fear to go outside or places where large amounts of people congregate. Attacks can happen anywhere. And the most frightening part is, the people that are planning these attacks don't care. In many cases, the shooter or bomber takes his or her own life after taking many others. This allows them to plan for more dangerous attacks and in turn, a higher casualty rate. ISIS has targeted many countries, having already attacked the US, France, Belgium, Syria, Iraq, Egypt, etc. The biggest attacks occurring from 2015 to 2016 include the Charlie Hebdo office shooting, the Paris shooting and bombing, a Yemen mosque bombing, and a Russian plane being downed in Egypt. In those 4 attacks alone, around 500 innocent people were killed and many more wounded. To this day, ISIS is still a major threat, and every day the world stands united to fight against them and put an end to the war on terror.